Okay, there's that red light, which means we're live. And I am so excited today to talk to my coach and my friend, Jodie. And this is the second part to a two-part, I guess I'm going to call it a series because more than one makes it a series, right? So on
Mhm.
Wednesday, I spoke with you all about grief and loss and my perspective on it and what I've found in my own life. And I wanted Jodie to share her perspective. I'm going to let Jodie tell you a bit about who she is, but Jodie has coached me. Jodie has been an amazing force in my life. I've learned so much. She's also a person who's had loss in her life and taken that experience and created a place to go from there that didn't keep her stuck. So I wanted that perspective for you. And I also just wanted to have a little taste of Jodie today because she's amazing. So, Jodie, why don't you let people know what you do?
What I do, gosh, the overarching is I'm a strategic soul advisor. So, what that
Okay.
means is that I speak into the highest frequency of your timeline. So, it is like I take you here, like I see you here, but we have things that are here and back here that need to be cleaned up, that need to be healed so that then you can get to that place. So a lot of what I do is untangling work. So working in the shadow aspects of ourselves, working in ancestral lineage, going back in time to sometimes even past lives. It rarely needs to go into past lives, but sometimes it does. Usually we can get to things that are in this lifetime because we've experienced so much trauma and so many things that need to be healed. But basically, these things happen in our lives that cause us to separate from our souls. And one of the things that people don't really understand is that our souls don't come, let's call it clean. They don't come clean. They come with their own trauma. They come with their own past traumas. They come with their own messages, wisdoms, and things that we need to pay attention to. But we drop in to this human body and we have this human experience. And what I help you do is bridge those two because it's a
Yes.
constant fight between going into the logical mind, which is more of the human, the 3D realm, and going in, like, trusting our intuition. And if our soul has come into this lifetime with this karmic debt, let's call it this karmic debt that needs to be cleaned up, that is actually part of the purpose and why we're here. We're going to continue to experience these things in this lifetime until we bridge those two. So it's like bringing these two together so that they form this really nice union so that we can trust our human. And we can also trust our soul, and we're not leaving our soul up on a shelf and letting her die a crusty, dusty death. And we're not also ignoring our human and the experiences that we're having. So, a lot of what I do also is working in relationships. And it's
Mm.
never really about the relationships, but it is about the relationships, meaning what people think is a relationship problem is not a relationship problem. It is actually your interpretation of what love is and your
Yes.
expectation of relationship. And when we've grown up in situations where there's been, let's just say, a lack of leadership in those areas, then it's kind of like we're floundering. Like I'm actually experiencing something right now where it feels like it's like a family, like when you grow. And what I tell people all the time, and you've heard this 100 million times, is grief and growth feel the same because we
Mm.
actually have to go through a grief process in order to grow. So even
Yes.
though we're speaking of death in terms of grief, there's a part of ourselves that has to die in order to evolve and in order to grow. And so what happens is what's really happening since 2020, well, in my world, for for the history of ever, but since 2020 as a collective consciousness is that people are not knowing how to actually grieve. They're not knowing how to look at these things and to look behind the feelings. And sometimes the feelings are just feelings. Like there's not even anything necessary there to really look at. It's just I need to feel this and let it roll out. So
Yeah.
everything goes back to our interpretation of what love is, and we are stepping into a whole new paradigm of what love is and a whole new way of looking at relationships and partnerships. And we have to really look at things from a lens of not like the surface level, but what is the energy, what is the frequency behind that? What is the energy, the frequency behind what you think is wrong in your relationship or what you think is wrong with other people? What is behind that? Because it's essentially everyone is a mirror to ourselves. And so
Yes.
when we are triggered by other people, it's actually a mirror showing us what still needs to be healed and released within ourselves. So what I was saying is that I'm going through this experience right now where I've hit an upper limit in my life around money. And I came into a lot of money after my husband died. We'll talk about that in a second, but what I'm experiencing right now is this whole other level where I had to go in and figure out, like go in and untangle from the lineage, the poverty lineage that I have in my ancestral lineage. And so what it feels like to me at this moment is like a literal breaking up of the tribe. It feels
Mm,
like if I step out of poverty consciousness, then I'm stepping away from the tribe. And there's a part of that and in that requires us to grieve that and to shift that into the higher level consciousness of like, wait a minute, they all experienced what they experienced because now this is my time to take our lineage and create a whole new cycle. And it's the same thing that happens when the people that we love are no longer in the physical. It's like we can live in regret, disappointment, regret, which is nothing more than living in the frequency of shame, which is I'm not enough. And we can literally live there and become conditioned to that feeling. So I know yesterday you talked about your childhood and losing your mom and how
yes.
she was never spoke of. It was just like she was there one day, she was gone the next, and now we move on. We don't talk about it. We don't look at it. It almost is this feeling of like it never existed. She never
Right. Yep.
existed. And what we need to do is we need to integrate them into our lives now, because the more we live and bring in all that was beautiful and right about them, the closer we are to them. So it's an
Right.
elevated experience, and that same thing happens. I know I'm talking like really big shit here, but that same thing happens when we are breaking these long historical conditioned ways within our family structure, within our family lineage.
Right.
So yeah, I gave you 9 minutes of all the things.
Well, that's why I let you do it, because only you could do that, like say all the things. But what I thought of as you were speaking in terms of the grief, yes, grief shows up in when someone dies, but it also shows up in smaller ways all throughout our life, which is some of what you were saying. Like I'm thinking of when you graduate from high school, there's this, or the grief in the growth that you have to grieve in order to grow, right? So like you graduate from high school and there's this like, like moving on and leaving your high school friends. And there's grief in that. And some people you stay in touch with and some you don't. But it really depends on how you grow and how they grow, who you end up staying in touch with. And then other things happen throughout our life and relationships too. I had mentioned on Wednesday, even though I was speaking specifically around death, that a divorce is also a grief.
Yeah.
It's a grief of a dream that you thought was going to go one way. But the same thing when someone dies. I didn't give birth to my daughter thinking I was going to bury her 15 years later. And you didn't get married thinking you were going to end up raising your 3 babies by yourself.
Right.
So people get really rocked by those experiences, and they are rocking, they are big life experiences, but staying there is what you and I are interested in helping people not do. Right.
Right. Right. And the truth of the matter is that we don't know. We don't know what's happening down the road. We don't know how long we have. We don't know. And people resist and stay in that frequency of disappointment or that frequency of grief or that frequency of regret. It's all kind of the same frequency. Like when you overstay your welcome in grief too long, it becomes the frequency of shame. And the frequency of shame is not enough. And you and I both work in energy. So energetically speaking, shame resonates at a frequency that's really close to death. It resonates at a frequency of 20 hertz. It's been measured at 20 hertz. Now you can think to yourself, yeah, I know that I'm enough. I know that I'm enough. I am enough. But yet the thought processing and the frequency that's running around in your cellular structure, and we're made of mostly water, that is running through our water, that is running through our blood. It's the frequency that I'm not enough. I'm not enough for this. I'm not enough to keep them here. I'm not enough to have a great marriage. I'm not enough to love and allow myself to be loved. These are the running records that happen. And we are literally a society that is walking around like the living dead, stuck in a grief frequency, but they don't realize it. We don't realize that we're in that until something happens to wake us up and go, whoa, wait a minute. Where have I been out of alignment? Where have I been in regret for the simple fact that I'm holding on to this conditioning? The conditioning that I should be miserable, the conditioning that I should be unhappy, the conditioning that I should be in poverty consciousness or slavery consciousness. All of that is conditioning, which you and I are here to break and to help others break free from too.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So just one second. Christy, who is a friend of both of ours, is saying hello. Christy says, what an amazing duo. Love you both so much. And this topic is so timely in our world today. Yeah. So, and that just reminds me to say hello if you are listening. Yes, that's right. This is being streamed in 4 or 5 places. So if you are listening, I may not see the comment in the moment because I can only see from some of the places, but please say hello. If you watch the replay later, and certainly if you love what Jodie says, and I can't imagine you won't, you want to say hello. And if you want to reach out and connect with Jodie, we'll tell you how to do that. But
we have a delay.
Well, I don't know them.
We have a delay. Linda's on a delay here, so I did interrupt. But what I was saying is, a lot of people.
No, that's okay. Yes.
A lot of people truly don't want to hear what I have to say because they don't want to look deep enough. Because what I naturally, giftedly do is help people look at the shadow aspects, look at the dark stuff, look at the things that they think they don't want to see, the things that they think they don't want to look at, but they're the things that they've been carrying around with them for the history of ever. And many times they're carrying for their ancestors too. And we wonder why so many people are burned out. We wonder why so many people have stress. It's because they're carrying all the shit around that they think they are not carrying, and they are.
Right. Yes. Yes, they are. So, yeah. Well, if someone was listening, and so a lot of what you said is pretty deep and is like, multiple levels in. But if we could sort of back it a little bit up, and for somebody who's like, I'm not really sure about all of that. I just know I'm feeling grief and I lost somebody. Like, I don't know about you, Jody, but I've had women get on the phone with me. One woman was talking on and on about, I saw you lost your daughter and that's made me you, and I lost my daughter. And I said, when did that happen? And she said, 23 years ago. And I was like, oh my goodness. Like 23 years ago, the way she was talking, I would have thought it was last month.
Right.
And I think sometimes people think, right, like they think that they're doing the other person a disservice by letting the grief go, maybe. Or I don't know. What's your
Yeah.
take on why that stays so?
So I remember there's a couple of times where I remember looking at myself, and one of those times, and noticing like it's really about, it's a couple of things, but one of the big things that it's about is like I should be I should be grieving. This is the way I should be. I should be sad right now. I should be blank. It's not even that somebody's putting the pressure on you necessarily, but there's all these hidden rules, like these hidden rules that are floating around. Like, I was 36 years old when my husband passed away, and he passed away suddenly. I was 15 weeks pregnant with our third child, so I had two children under the age of 5, and it was completely sudden. We were at the top of our game, both of us, in life and career, and it was a sudden emotional impact that could have wiped me out, and it did. I mean, don't get me wrong, there was a good length of time where I needed help making my own toast, let alone taking care of my children. It took a village, and I noticed some things. So one of the things that I noticed is that my preconditioning, so before my husband died, my preconditioning was that I don't need any help. I got this. It was a way for me to protect myself from being hurt, even from my husband. It was this sense of pride that I can do it all myself. I got this. I can not only change light bulbs. You tell me that my dishwasher's broken and I think it's not broken, and you tell me that I need a motherboard and it's going to cost $900. I'm going to go on Amazon, buy a $20 part, and fix the damn thing myself. So I'm that kind of person, but yet there's also a part of us that has to step back. We've got to know when it's time to allow ourselves to receive and when it's time to move. And a lot of people get stuck in the frozen state where they forgot how to move. They forgot how to make their own decisions. They forgot actually how to live. They forgot that they get to decide how they feel. Like, that is the thing. Like, we get to decide how we feel in this moment. And so at first, when I couldn't make the toast, I needed my village, and I had to tell myself the truth. I had to stop lying. I had to stop saying things that, like, I'm not supported, or I don't need support, or I don't need help. those were lies, because we're living with other humans, having a human to human experience. We require that connection, we require that love. And my preconditioned self before death woke me up was that I would put walls up against that. That was my way of protecting myself from feeling connected to somebody, because the family lineage thought processing is that love is painful. Love equals pain. I mean, even
Yes.
from, just my parents getting divorced, not even experiencing a death with them. It was a divorce, but love equaled pain. Everywhere I looked, love was equaling pain. So we have to flip those processing, those conditioned beliefs into something else. And it's almost like I had my baby 6 months after he died, and it was like my brain was growing and morphing and regenerating at the same time that she was growing. So what I was experiencing is that my brain, at the time of death, basically, I was able to bring in like my right brain was working. I was able to bring in the thought, the creative juices, but I wasn't able to move those into my left brain, which actually causes us to take actions. And so there were a lot of times like I was tapped
Right.
in creatively, spiritually, because that spirit comes through the right brain, but I wasn't able to take those actions and put them into play. Like, I know that, like, okay, toast, I can do toast today. But to go toast the toast, that requires an action that I just can't do. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is how our brain starts to it stops functioning like that. It stops communicating right brain to left brain. And so people get stuck in that frozen state and they're not able to move. So then when I went back to work a couple months after he died, and then I had my baby, so I was at work for about 4 months. But I noticed myself, I just started observing, which is very important. We must observe our behavior, we must observe our emotions, and what people are really conditioned to do is observe other people. Is to judge how other people are feeling, to
Right.
judge how what other people are doing, instead of how am I responding to this? What is actually going on here? So when people say, "Good morning, how are you doing today?" We're conditioned to say, "I'm good, thank you." Right? Like, that's the conditioning. When you're
Yep.
going through a death experience or a difficult experience, it's not what you want to say. It's not like the thing that makes sense. So, what makes sense when you're in the heat of grief? I am doing okay. I'm doing okay. Thank you for asking. And then I just started questioning myself. I started looking at how I was responding. And I got conditioned to say, I'm doing okay. And then I started to notice that my mind was going, "Wait, you're actually feeling pretty good, Jody. I think you're lying." And this is the thing that people don't do. They don't tell themselves the truth. Are you really just doing okay, or are you doing pretty fucking good? And so I started noticing that I was lying to myself and lying to them in the process, right? Like, so then I tested it out. "How are you doing today?" "I'm doing good. I'm really doing good." "How are the kids?" And that was like one of the small times, but it was so critical. It was one of those core moments where I recognized where I was lying, where I was still telling a story that was, it's like, what do they want me? How should I be right now? Is it okay that I'm actually good right now? And there were many times that I wasn't good. I'm just using this as an example. And yet also, this is the other thing, Linda. What is your value? So if my value is to be miserable and sad in life, then I'm going to do whatever I can to continue to prove misery and sadness. But if my value in life
Right.
is to live, if my value in life is to connect, if my value in life is to experience the experience and tell a story that my soul has never told in the history of ever, then I cannot continue the lie. And the lie is a separation from ourselves. The lie is a separation from our source. The lie is a separation from God, your higher source. Whatever it is for you is your business. But it's a separation from your life, from your vitality. And so we it's not actually true. If people actually told themselves the whole truth, it's not that they think that they're staying in a certain place because they're not like giving justice to the human's life. That's BS. What's really happening is what's behind that. Because people tell themselves that this is what it is. But it's not actually that. Because that's not truth. And truth always prevails. So what is behind that? What is really going on here? What's really going on here is that you're stuck in the conditioning. You're stuck in this frequency. And either you don't know how to get yourself out, or you're worried about what other people think of you and what you should and shouldn't be doing. I mean, if you want to feel like all eyes are on you, be a young widow with 3 children. Because what I learned is that judgment is judgment. It doesn't matter if it is good judgment, bad judgment. It doesn't even exist. Like good, bad, it doesn't even exist. It is what it is. Most people looked at me and questioned what I was doing, what decisions I was making, how my children were, out of like goodness of their heart. Like that was where the judgment was. But when all eyes are on you, I remember, I can take you back to the day of his funeral. And as a young widow, I was like, I didn't have any examples of that. Like, who am I supposed to be as a widow, as a young widow, raising babies on my own? Who am I supposed to be? You lose your sense of identity.
Yes.
And what we accidentally do is we think that our identity died with our loved one. And it didn't. We have to bring that, all that was good and right, into the now, and then take it into our future. And so that was back in the at the funeral. That was the moment I was like, okay, I'm going to put on a good show. I'm going to be on stage anyway. People are going to be looking at me anyway. So I'm going to give them something good to look at. And when I say good to look at, I'm not talking about a train wreck because that's what some people think, is a good show. But I'm going to lead the way. I'm going to lead the way. And it's really, then it comes down to your values. Again, I decided really early on that, one, I'm here to live. I still had life literally inside of me. And that's the law. Like, that is the truth. As long as you are a living, breathing human being, you still have life inside of you. One, I'm going to live. What that means is that when we choose to live, we are required by law, by human nature law, okay? By God's law, by the law of the universe, okay? That's the law I'm talking about. We are required to let go of anything that's holding us back from our growth. So anything and anyone that was keeping me or holding me back from experiencing more life and a greater love experience, I had to let go of. 2, the next thing that I promised basically was that I'm here to love. My value is first life, then love. Okay, what does that mean? That means that, and at first, sometimes we have to tweak this, because if we're going, if we think that because our value system it changes. Okay, value systems change over a period of time, as you know, as you gain more wisdom. So I thought that mean like where I was living was regret around love, because I wasn't able to love him as deeply as I desired to love him when he was here. I did not know the lessons that I had now. I did not understand how much I was blocking love. I didn't understand how much I was protecting myself from love. So, in a way, I had, oh, hello. My dog. One of the, I don't know if you hear the chirp, but one of the fire, what do we call it? The fire alarms are chirping. He's this big old guy. Look at him. Scared as all get out. Look at him.
He's scared of the chirp? He's scared of the chirp?
So anyway, love. At first, because I was living in that regret of not that shame of not being a better lover, not being a better wife. I only promised that I was going to love. I was going to allow myself to love. Okay. And then I got into a relationship that taught me that, oh, wait a minute, I'm allowed to also be loved the way I deeply desire to. So the next value is I'm here to love and allow myself to be loved in ways that I deeply desire. And so that led me to the third value. He's now, oh, buddy, it's okay, honey. He's shaking. You're okay. Oh. It's okay, guys. We're almost done here. We're almost done. So the third value, it's okay. Oh my God, he's shaking terribly. Oh, and here's the other guy. It's okay. Usually it's you and your dogs.
Yes. Yep, I'm enjoying this.
Okay, so they're both shaking, you guys. Oh gosh. Matt's not here. Okay, so the third value that must happen after grief is that you're here to lead. So having 3 babies all of a sudden to raise on my own, I knew as I looked in nature that a mother duck led their ducklings across the street. And I had to be a woman who was fit in mind, in body, and just really fun. So fit and fun. When I did a brief stint of therapy, it didn't last long because I figured out that I was just going in there to cry. But when I was with her, Linda has a big delay. But when I was with her, one of the things that I said to her was that I don't know how to have fun. Like my husband Thor did that job. He was the fun parent. I am not fun. Like, I feel so ignorant at this. I don't know how to play. I didn't even play as a child, didn't even have Barbies as a child. Like, how does this even work? And so I knew I needed to be someone who needed to heal and change the reasons behind why I wasn't able to have fun. And that's all around leadership. So when you have these three values, it doesn't matter what happens in your life. It doesn't matter what's around the corner, anything can be thrown your way as long as you go back to these three main value areas. You can get through anything. But how we interpret each of those areas will determine, what you do with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that your value is love. But you're absolutely right. Some of the work when I'm working with my clients is if your commitment is to be love, and if your stand is love, what would you do in this situation? Who do you need
Yep.
to be? You're telling me this is going on or that's going on, and okay, so if your commitment is love, not to be right, then who do you need to be? So, and it takes sometimes death to have that realization. Yeah.
Exactly.
I just want to, yeah, I'm mindful that your dogs are shaking, so I don't want to keep you too long, but I
They're
do
up
want
on
to
the
just
couch.
say,
They're up on the couch.
oh, okay,
Well,
okay,
what I was going
good.
to say, let me say this one thing and then we'll
When you
wrap it
share,
up.
okay,
So, what having these three values and like just remove everything else and stick to this. What happens is because we get in such decision overload, every decision, and I think that's what you were saying, how every decision that you make, you just need to come back to these three things. If we just come back to these three main things, we can make our decisions. Does it fit? Does it fit? Does it fit?
yes,
Yes, go. Move. If you're not moving, then obviously you need some healing. Linda and I do that.
yes, yes. Thank you for pointing that out. It's just a really nice, crisp thing to remember that solves it. And
Yeah,
exactly so. If you're stuck and you can't go to one of those three things, then right, there's something there that's still a block, and it's just there to be healed. That's all.
that's right.
Um, so Jodie, if somebody wanted to, talk to you, reach out to you, interested in really doing, having a soul liberated life, which is what you do, maybe in their relationships or whatever, how would they reach you?
So they can find me at Soul Liberated Life here on Facebook. I have a free Facebook group. I do most of my work, most of my fun, most of my educating over on Instagram. I also have a podcast, Soul Liberated Life podcast. It's on iTunes and all the other things, whatever the other things are. Whatever the other things are. So, Soul Liberated Life or Jodie Rodenbaugh, and you can find me there. If you have a question, then I am not at all shy about getting messages and talking through that.
So great. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your experience with us, and how
You're
far
welcome.
you've come from being a woman who didn't know how to love, a woman who didn't know how to have fun, a woman who couldn't make her own toast, to a woman who's leading others into amazing lives. So thank you for sharing that. And so I'll look in the other places where this is being posted and see if there are other comments. If I need to send anybody your way, if they've put any questions there, I'll do that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.